Milling Through History presents The Last Confederate. Jesse James is one of the most famous outlaws ever to occur in the Wild West. However, he is perhaps also rather unique in the fact that he had fought during the Civil War, and some historians have argued that even his own reign of terror of being an outlaw was really just an extension of the war itself, being the last man fighting in a cause which no longer existed. To better understand Jesse James, though, it is important that we look at his life and understand how he got into a career of becoming an outlaw. He was born September the 5th, 1847, and would grow up in Missouri, which was at one time referred to as Little Dixie. With the outbreak of the Civil War, many people know that Kansas, which is a neighbor of Missouri, had been seen as a bit of a prelude to the war itself. But if Kansas was a prelude, Missouri was most certainly the ugliest side of the war, as that particular state would become a center of guerrilla warfare between both Union and Confederate forces. Frank James, the older brother of Jesse, would form a guerrilla band and be involved in tactics in Clay County, Missouri. According to legend, Union forces would go to the James household, capture the family, and Jesse was whipped by Union soldiers. Whatever the case may be, in 1864, Jesse James would join Quantrill's Raiders and became a guerrilla fighter. And it was during the final 2 years of the Civil War that Jesse James was shot in the chest twice and almost died from those wounds. Now, following the war itself, many individuals, both North and South, found themselves tired of warfare and wanted to start a fresh new life, ideally going west. For Jesse James, it's hard to say exactly what his mentality was post-war, but his first confirmed crime would occur on December the 7th, 1869, when both he and Frank would rob the Daviess County Savings Association. And during the robbery, Jesse would shoot the bank teller, one Captain John Sheets, in what he referred to as a revenge killing going back to the Civil War. Now, as Jesse started to form a gang along with his brother Frank, they would go from robbing banks to robbing stagecoaches and finally making their greatest form of notoriety, that of robbing trains. Now, interestingly enough, the bulk of Jesse's gang was made up from former Confederate soldiers, and as such, it is from his makeup of the gang that many historians have believed that in the mind of Jesse and Frank James, their efforts were basically the continuation of the Civil War. The reason for this is because by robbing trains, this would help to disrupt commerce of the victorious Union, especially as the vast majority of rail lines were found in the North. As such, this would be their last-ditch effort to go ahead and at least inflict some kind of damage to their former foes. Now, the gang would eventually find themselves into trouble, as while robbing a bank in Minnesota, they were engaged in a gun battle, which nearly wiped out the entire gang itself. Upon returning to Missouri, Jesse looked to have the protection of two former members who were being brought back into the fold, the Ford brothers. And as such, with these two men would come and live with Jesse and his family. Bob Ford, however, is not seen to have been necessarily wanting to be part of the gang, but instead was looking for his own sense of fame. As such, on April the 3rd, 1882, Bob Ford would stand right behind Jesse and shoot him in the back. In the span of one day, Ford was arrested, tried, sentenced, and pardoned, making many people believe that this particular assassination was something that was prearranged, premeditated, and predetermined. As such, his own notoriety became known as the coward Bob Ford. As for Jesse James, many people still look upon him as a martyr and also as the last Confederate soldier to die in the Civil War. Now be sure to click like, share, and subscribe for future episodes of Milling Through History, and leave comments below for future episode ideas. And be sure to take a look at our suggested reading page.